How would it be to drink a glass of acetic acid? How about sodium hydroxide? Yummy! You wouldn't do that because the body isn't compatible with strong acids or strong bases. But the body also needs to construct and hydrolyze esters. In other videos, I've talked about doing this in a laboratory. We featured acidic or basic catalysis. So how does this go on in the body? Acidic or basic media are generally not acceptable. So enzymes do this at neutral pH. For instance, chymotrypsin or elastase or trypsin. These enzymes perform hydrolysis and sometimes construction of esters under neutral conditions. How do they do that? In this video, I'd like to tell you how they do. To do that, I'd like to introduce members of a catalytic triad. First of all, aspartic acid, histidine, and the star of the performance, serine. Serine is the star because we're going to use the OH group of serine to form an intermediate ester in the hydrolysis step. Let's see how they get together to hydrolyze an ester. Those three residues, aspartic acid, histidine, serine, are cocooned in the middle of an enzyme, in the enzyme active site. Let's see how that catalytic triad works together to hydrolyze an ester. And I've chosen a generic one here, but you can imagine hydrolysis of a triglyceride to give you fatty acids in your body, or construction of fatty acids from lipases, the reverse process. All the same idea. Let's go through that. In my hydrolysis videos before, I told you protonate to activate. And then put your pen on the electron density and work towards the positive charge. In an enzyme, we can't quite protonate. So what we'll do instead is take the ester substrate and hydrogen bond it to NH group somewhere in the enzyme. And then let's take the aspartic acid and start on the negative charge of the aspartic acid. The next residue in the chain is histidine, and it serves a very special purpose. Because recall, in histidine, there are two tautomers which enable you to put the NH in one position or the other. So we're starting with the NH on the aspartic acid side. We push the electrons in, deprotonate the histidine, which relays the charge to the serine OH group. Now, if we were to deprotonate that and form an alkoxide, well, that's too basic, not allowed. So as the charge forms on the serine hydroxide, it spontaneously delocalizes onto the carbonyl of the ester. And we form the type of tetrahedral intermediate that we know and love. So I've redrawn this here with more reasonable bond lengths to give you an idea of what that tetrahedral intermediate looks like. The tetrahedral intermediate collapses, and in doing so it deprotonates a water. We can't have OH. That negative charge is used to take a proton away from the imidazole. That relays the charge to the other side, where the imidazole abstracts the proton from the aspartic acid side chain. That's the aspartic acid side chain that was protonated in the first step. So you see the electrons have surged from one side of the active site to the other, and then they've surged back. But we've not finished yet. The next step in the process is to hydrolyze the ester on the serine side chain. So it proceeds in pretty much the same way. This time the aspartic acid deprotonates the histidine relays the charge, and in doing so deprotonates the water, That OH group, as it forms, never isolated, feeds the electrons through into the serine ester side chain and forms a different tetrahedral intermediate. Of course, then that collapses. It eliminates the serine O side chain, which is protonated by the NH of the imidazole. The electrons feed back and take off a proton again from the aspartic acid. So we're left with aspartic acid, histidine, water, and serine, and we've hydrolyzed our ester to a carboxylic acid. So you can just feel these waves of electrons moving from one side of the catalytic site to the other. For a game, for fun, I'd just try something I'd never tried before. If these steps aren't discrete electron hops, but they are waves, I should be able to represent them by just one curly arrow for one step and one curly arrow going back. So I tried it. I drew this monster curly arrow here to depict the electron flow. In this video, I represented things in 2 dimensions, and that's not real. In the enzyme active site, the enzyme orientates everything that's combining with something else to make this beautiful wave of electrons flowing from one place to another. Electrons move in ways, and enzymes like esterases take advantage of that to never produce a strong base or a strong acid, but affect hydrolysis. Of course, there are other enzymes like proteases that operate with actually several different catalytic triads via the same principle, never isolating a really strong acid or a strong base, but instead a flow through an enzyme active site. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.